What's up, guys? I am back and I'm going to be doing a Q&A session, and this is something I've looked forward to doing for a while because I get a lot of particular questions, whether I'm in the gym or just around, from people that want general ideas about training and nutrition, and I figured that I would try my best to cover some of these in a video. And with the Q&A, I would ask them to be as particular as possible because many questions in fitness, in training and nutrition have an answer that really depends on the person's goals, depending on where they are now, where they want to be, especially in terms of nutrition and in regards to their particular sport that they want to practice, whether it be bodybuilding, powerlifting, any kind of Olympic training, athletic training. So I have a few really good questions that I want to dive right into, and I'll get into the first one. This is from my friend Anthony Maglino, one of my fellow classmates at the University of Scranton, and he just wanted me to talk a little bit about what I recommend in terms of pre- and post-workout nutrition. And I'll start it, like I just said, it really depends. It depends on the goal that you want to get out of the workout. But what I will give as general guidelines is, starting with pre-workout nutrition, you want to choose something that allows you to be focused during the workout. And a lot of people will get the first thought in their head, I need carbs. I need to fuel my workout by eating a large carb meal. However far before the workout may vary, but generally people will agree that carbs combined with a protein source pre-workout is a good idea. I'm on the other end of the spectrum, and I really think that if people open up their mind to this idea and tried it, you'll never know that carbs affect you this way versus a no-carb meal pre-workout will affect you in another way without trying both sides. So what I generally recommend pre-workout is my final meal before my workout, which tends to be, for me, just how my schedule works out, between a half hour to an hour before I get into the gym and start working out. I won't have any carb sources in there. I will not have any rice, any potato, pasta, or anything like that. What I will have is a easily digestible protein source. For me, a lot of the time, it's a white fish, whether it be flounder, cod, haddock, or something like that. I don't want any of my systems in my body being focused on digesting while I'm lifting. Rather, I would want the blood flow, of course, to the muscle to encourage all the benefits that come with blood flow and training. So an easily digestible protein source is number one. The amount of that, however many ounces of meat, or even if you choose to do a whey shake, I'm perfectly okay with that if you're on a time constraint. The only problem with that is longer workouts might leave you a little bit empty at the end if you simply just have a whey shake with some other ingredients possibly with it. So the protein source, the grams of protein that you're going to aim for, of course, is dependent on a lot of factors: intensity of the workout, body weight, goals of the individual, and all that. And I will combine it with a green vegetable. Usually I will rotate green beans, broccoli, asparagus, something that gives my stomach a little bit of fullness, but I certainly won't overdo it on the vegetables. Again, for the same reason with the protein source. I don't want to have anything heavy on my stomach that could limit my movement or limit my training in any way. As well, with the protein and the vegetables, I like to add some fats. No carbs pre, give it a shot, but add some fats. Preferably medium chain triglycerides. And the best way that I've found to get this, coconut oil. All it will be is roughly a tablespoon. You could do less than that because a tablespoon of coconut oil has approximately 120 calories, and for a spoonful of oil, you'll say, yes, that is a lot, which it is. So again, depending, you could do a little bit less than that if you tend to be lighter, and depending on how your fat macros work out for the day. But medium chain triglycerides are the best form of fat for fuel that are easily broken down during a workout. Combining that, like I said, with the protein and the vegetables. So, not that I'm saying carbs pre-workout don't work at all. That's certainly not the case. But I'm just advocating that you could try no carbs pre-workout. And the biggest thing that I've found is the mental edge. Especially for me, being able to store fat more easily, especially from excess carbohydrate, I noticed that the carbs would make me a little bit sluggish. Yes, the pump from training would be there and everything, but if I'm not able to be mentally focused during my workout, especially as the workout draws a little bit longer and I start to lose the focus toward the end, that's not what I want. That's not what I want to do in training. I want to be locked in when I'm in the gym, because the training is what sets the stimulus for all other nutrition principles to fall in place. So pre-workout, generally stay away from the carbs, give it a shot, see how it feels. Might not be for you, you might love it or hate it. And now for post-workout, this is where the carbs are going to come in. And anyone knows that anaerobic exercise, weightlifting, and the training that we do here is going to tap into your glycogen stores for energy. So after your workout, you are going to be severely depleted with muscle glycogen. So what we need to do at this point is, we are in such a deficit from causing the muscle damage and having our energy stores depleted, we are ready to replenish. So what we need to do with that is, our post-workout meal is going to be the highest carb meal of the day. I've followed that pretty much throughout my training career. The amount of carbs will certainly, again, depend on the duration of the workout, the intensity of the workout, what muscle group you train. You probably will favor a little bit more carbs following a leg day more so than something like a shoulder or arm day. But the carbs will still need to be the highest post-workout. And again, I'll combine it with a lean protein source. So chicken, fish again. You could even do egg whites, anything like that. Ground turkey. I even do beef, depending on the cut of steak. I usually, if I'm going toward ground beef, I'm going to favor a lean ground beef, preferably 93.7 and above. So combining those two with a little bit of greens, I won't overdo it with this, because generally this is going to be a large meal, a lot of protein, a lot of carbs, and I don't necessarily want to fill my stomach as much with the fibrous green vegetables as much as I would like to plug in with other meals. So that's the real takeaway point. I really favor a high carb post-workout. Even me, especially before I will even get into the meal, where I will use high carb sources such as white or jasmine rices that are easily digestible. I'll even go before that, and depending, I'll really get a fast digesting carb source in me following my workout, whether it be a bagel or English muffin, depending on how many carbs you need. And you could even top that with jelly. Especially on a lean mass gaining phase, I'm all in for a lot of carbs post-workout. And some people can handle, depending, again, on many factors, more carbs than they really think post-workout. And you'll see, especially going into the next day's training session, those glycogen stores will be there, and you will have a much more productive workout because of it. So Anthony, I hope that answers your question in regards to pre and post-workout nutrition. And like I said, it's all dependent on how you feel, and there's many variables that go into the exact numbers behind the pre and post-workout nutrition, but those are just some general guidelines. And secondly, we will get into some Delt training topics. We will get into the programming in terms of volume, frequency, but more importantly, how could we bring up a lagging body part if your delts are your lagging body part, and especially rear delts, which a lot of people tend to not be able to feel, and then in turn over time become a weak body part. I'd like to thank Haley Farrell for this question. So when I train my delts, one thing I've learned over time is it may seem obvious, they are a pretty small muscle group. So in turn, don't need as much volume as people think, me being one of them. I would have, and I still do some days, depending, because delts naturally are a weak body part for myself, having a delt exclusive day. and doing press after press and front raise, and then getting into sides and rears, and combining exercise after exercise, and not getting to the root cause or the number one goal or the base of that pyramid, what we want to do when training any muscle group, especially even more so a weak muscle group. We want to improve our execution. We really want to know the anatomy of the muscle group, and we want to be able to effectively program our exercises, effectively contract that muscle, shorten that distance between the insertion and the origin, as simple as it sounds, under the biggest load in the most efficient way possible, and get it done, hit it hard, get out, and then get into that recovery. So if we're going to talk about rear delts, a lot of people can perform rear delt fly after rear delt fly, whether it be on cables, with dumbbells, standing, seated, all these other different variations, and may have not ever experienced a real rear delt pump in their life. They'll just go through it and they'll, granted, think that just simply doing the exercise is doing the work. Again, as we know, not the case. If you don't feel it, it's not working. So, just some general exercise execution techniques and cues that I use for rear delts. A lot of people when training rear delts will first think elbows back, like with back training, and drive them around themselves. I would not recommend that. I would think just as I would with side delts, but you'll just be doing it in a different plane. Think about moving your hands and moving your elbows out. Try to touch the left wall with your left hand, the right wall with your right hand, and you'll feel at that point keeping a steady angle, ever so slight steady angle in your elbows, you'll be able to contract the rear delts. Another thing with rear delts is a lot of people think that they have a lot more active range of motion than they really do. If you really dissect a rear delt exercise, you will notice that the active range of motion is not that big. People will go all the way, just fitting themselves to machines, and go all the way from their midline and go all the way wrap around and until they could drive their elbow far back toward their rear midline and until they run out of room. But knowing where your rear delt inserts, which is on your deltoid tuberosity in the middle of your humerus here, and then also on the spine of your scapula, you'll notice, number one, it's a very small muscle. So its contractile range is going to be short. And what a lot of people will do is they will not keep their scapula stable. They will either alternate between protraction, rounding in the shoulders, or retraction, pulling back the shoulder blades, assuming that that motion of the protraction and retraction is actually performed by the rear delt, which it is not. So what I do, I have used both in my training. I have done protracted rear delt exercises and retracted ones. Generally, I lean a little bit more toward retracted. It's just a little bit more of a stable environment, especially in an exercise like a reverse pec deck, where my chest is pressed against the pad, and then I'm able to keep my shoulder blades pinned, locked down and back, and then be able to initiate the rear delts from there. And the last exercise execution thing I think about with rear delts is keeping in a perfect straight line with your elbow and your entire upper arm. A lot of people will dip their elbow down or even dip up, and then also rotate the shoulder internally and externally. So what that will do, pretty much long story short, is involve other muscle groups, other larger muscle groups that will want to do the work. So speaking on terms of rear delts being so small, pretty much any muscle group that surrounds it is going to be larger and going to be stronger, which your body wants to recruit. So your lats, your teres, and then on the other end of the spectrum, your side and front delts are going to be stronger and more efficient at moving the load than your rear delts. But that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to isolate rear delts. So what we want to do is we want to be able to keep our elbow and our entire arm perfectly parallel with the floor and perpendicular with our upper body. And like I said with all the other previous points, don't work outside that active range of motion, and just contract the rear delts, think out, not back, and then you'll just on those few cues alone be able to feel the rear delts a lot more. And in terms of programming, like I said earlier, a lot of people will devote, including me, a whole day to delts. That's fine. But one thing that I've seen in people that I've worked with and worked out with is a little bit of added delt volume on any other days. If you like to throw it in on your arm days, or your chest days, fronts and sides generally work well with chest. You could throw in rears with back, wherever you can, to just add those few sets. And by few sets, I mean few properly executed sets, and it's going to pay off. Just the whole repeated bout effect thing, getting in, following your actual shoulder day. Especially if shoulders are a weak point, I would definitely keep a full shoulder day in. That's what I like to do. And like I said, I like to add fronts and sides, maybe with a chest day, an arm day, anything that I will be pushing, or I will add even sides depending, and rears on a pull day, back day, whatever that may be, just to get that little bit more frequency in there. So we will move along to a few specific questions about supplementation. And first, I'm going to address the NCAA rules and regulations when it comes to supplement use. And me being a natural bodybuilder, have a similar guideline to follow. And I was intrigued when I first was asked to research this in terms of what the NCAA allows versus what most natural bodybuilding federations allow for supplement use. And what I came across with was that there was a lot in common. And I have the list here from the NCAA's website. And the main categories that are brought up, I'll go through them straight down. Number 1 is stimulants. 2, anabolic agents. 3, alcohol and beta blockers. 4, diuretics and other masking agents. 5, illicit drugs. 6, peptide hormones and analogs. 7, anti-estrogens, and 8, beta-2 agonists. So I'll just go through each one a little bit to just give you some basic substances that'll fall under each of these categories. Stimulants, anything like Adderall, cocaine, ephedrine, methamphetamines, and all other kinds of amphetamines. But one thing that is intriguing about this one is caffeine. And in parentheses, listed right after caffeine is guarana. And this particular form of caffeine is different from a caffeine that you will find in a black coffee bean. The guarana form of caffeine tends to be approximately between 2 and 4 times stronger. But this is generally something that a supplement company or an energy drink manufacturer, other companies that produce stimulants and sell to the general public might want to put in their product to be able to make it more effective with a little bit less of a dose. So when it comes to caffeine use, of course, with anything that you have that might be a banned substance, you read the label. Read the label carefully, and in the case of caffeine, don't only look for that the substance contains caffeine, but also what form of caffeine it is, because, again, if you prefer, drink a cup of coffee, you're fine. But if you notice that it is the guarana form of caffeine, I would not take that. I would not recommend that to an NCAA athlete in case there is an upcoming drug test. And number 2, anabolic agents. This comes down to many of the bodybuilding supplements, the extracurriculars that are involved. Let's see, Trenbolone, SARMs, SARMs, couple ones that I think you might run into on a general market here is DHEA, which is a very popular ingredient used in testosterone boosting supplements, along with 7-keto. Anything with that, and the substance, of course, it won't just be 7-keto, it'll be 7-keto followed by an advanced chemical name that I don't know 100%, and there's many different forms of it. But from the website, it looks like all of those are banned as an anabolic agent as well. You'll see a lot of those in products that are marketed as pro-hormones, and 7-keto is proven to be an effective ingredient for that on the more of the natural hormonal regulation, as opposed to more of the synthetic stuff you'll get with a Trenbolone or a clenbuterol or any other kind of testosterone ester from that. 3 alcohol and beta blockers, that's pretty self-explanatory. Diuretics, all different forms of diuretic that are used to clear water from the system. 5 illicit drugs, so those are pretty much your street drugs that are listed here: heroin, marijuana, THC. 6 peptide hormones, of course, human growth hormone, HGH, that's a no-go, especially even at the professional level. And also as well another one, IGF-1, and it's listed as colostrum, and that might even raise some eyebrows in the natural supplement market as well. But even if it wasn't on the brink of being a banned substance, I wouldn't particularly recommend colostrum. It's a little bit of a dated supplement, and it simply might just be, what I'm hearing off of basic research, is pretty much a digestive aid. So if you're looking for that for stomach health, stay away from the colostrum. There's better options available, whether it be probiotics, digestive enzymes. Even glutamine is a great one for the stomach. 7, any anti-estrogens, so a lot of stuff that would be used as a PCT for if you went on an anabolic cycle and then came off. Rimidex is a very popular one, Clomid. So any of those will be used as general PCT treatments. So barring you don't take a dive into number 2 with the anabolic agents, anti-estrogens shouldn't be a problem as well. And the last one, beta-2 agonists. And I don't know exactly what these are, to be honest. So I'm not going to say anything that will incriminate me on these. But that's the last one. So assuming these are listed in general category form, maybe not be your most popular stuff, of course. Me being a natural bodybuilder, know most of the stuff that goes in, even on the enhanced level, what people will generally take that give a very good result. So that is for the NCAA regulated supplements. And I was also asked about my own personal supplement use. And this is something that, of course, as a natural bodybuilder, I would have to really enhance my performance as much as I can within the realm of being natural supplementation, vitamins, minerals, and other things like that. And I have my list of what I generally take in a day, and I wouldn't recommend all of this to anyone, especially if you're on a budget. At that point, you should be able to take a few out of these and be able to say, okay, these are proven to be effective, they fit my budget, they fit my goals at the moment, and then I could plug these in for a little bit of supplemental help, and that's pretty much all it is. Making sure that number 1, training is effective. Number 2, your diet is on point to match your training goals as well as your overall physique goals. So I will take a look at what I have here. Let's see, whey protein, of course, and that's 100% just a food supplement. You can live without it. Whey protein is a very good source of bioavailable protein, easily broken down. But like I said, not, I would even say, has to be purchased. If you can hit your protein content or your macros for the day without a whey protein source, you will make great results. Next, creatine monohydrate. This one I will recommend. I recommend to males. I recommend to females. Just normal dosing. It's not a very sexy supplement. It's been researched more than any other supplement ever. And it's just proven to work. Completely saturating muscle cells, used for ATP production. And for that reason, I will go 5 grams pre and 5 grams post. That number can vary, mostly dependent on body weight and goals and overall body composition. BCAAs and EAAs, new research leaning a little bit more toward EAAs as a more complete supplement, especially as a post-workout recovery supplement. BCAA is starting to get a rap as being anti-catabolic, not necessarily anabolic. So waiting on a few more studies on that I could get my hands on to really analyze and see how well it translates to trained athletes. Your favorite pre-workout supplement, look for something that's well dosed. Good amount of caffeine, depending on how caffeine tolerant you are, but make sure full dosing is given on your labels, not any proprietary blends or anything like that, so you don't know what you're getting or in what quantities you're getting. Glutamine, like I mentioned before, digestive health, stomach health. Glutamine is the most abundant amino acid in the body and has multiple benefits. Then after this, a solid greens and multivitamin supplement. That's where you're going to get a good bang for your buck, filling in all the vitamins and mineral gaps that you may have from your diet. Granted, your diet is on point. There's still going to be holes, regardless. And in terms of greens, I really value a good greens powder early in the morning. And this is more of an herbal remedy for me rather than purely vitamin mineral supplementation. I will swear by this, and people who know me personally know I talk about this and know I swear by it. It is a shaker full of water. I add lemon juice, apple cider vinegar, ground turmeric powder, ground ginger powder, cinnamon, black pepper, a scoop of my vegetable greens supplement, as well as about 5 grams of BCAAs and 5 grams of glutamine. Mix that up and drink that with my breakfast. I'll start drinking that before breakfast and finish it off as I eat. Great overall supplement there. Between the turmeric and the ginger, helps fight inflammation early in the morning. My joints feel great. My stomach feels great after that. It's a little tough to stomach to drink, but my digestion is just great after that. Ginger is also shown to have immune benefits. Black pepper being used again, and getting my body temperature up ever so slightly. You could probably even use cayenne pepper if you prefer to really get the body temperature enhanced, so you could possibly ever so slightly burn a little bit more fat. Black pepper also to absorb all of these other substances as well, and I'll get my BCAAs and my glutamine to kickstart my body in an anabolic state for the day. So those are good as well. When I talk digestive health, I will take a probiotic. I will take a digestive enzyme. Generally, with the probiotic, I believe it's a 10 to 25 billion strain probiotic. Generally, that's pretty high strain of gut bacteria in those. So that's a really good one to look for. Look for that on your labels. As well as vitamin D. Vitamin D is very important. That's one of those vitamins that everyone, especially living here in northeastern Pennsylvania, is probably deficient in. And I'll take 5,000 IUs, especially in the winter. I might go down a little bit as summer goes down along toward maybe 2,000, 3,000 IUs, but 5,000 IUs in the winter, and it makes me feel great, enhances mood, has many other benefits, brain health, and beyond that. Fish oil supplement, 2 at the morning, 2 at lunch, any omega-3s. And the keys to look for when selecting an omega-3 supplement: EPA, DHA. I believe, don't know the number off my head, I believe it's 1,500 milligrams of each you're aiming for in a day. So when selecting your supplement, look for good doses of EPA and DHA so you won't be having to take an outrageous amount of fish oil pills in a given day. Let me take a look as well what else I would deem essential. Magnesium and zinc, of course, are 2 big ones. Magnesium, especially before bed, to promote the neurotransmitter GABA, helps you fall asleep, deep restful sleep from that, and about 400 to 800 milligrams. I'll space that out through my evening. Zinc as well, many of the same benefits. A lot of people's diet deficient in zinc. And from that, I will do anywhere, this is a broad range, between 30 and 150 milligrams a day. General body weight is probably going to be your deciding factor on that. So those are pretty much your essential ones. Creatine, BCA, EAA, if you prefer a pre-workout supplement. glutamine, vegetable greens, and multi, probiotic digestive enzyme, vitamin B3, fish oil, magnesium, and zinc. Other than that, that's about it. I mentioned my morning shake. I really recommend that for its anti-inflammatory and immune health benefits. So that's just an idea of what I take. It will vary. Of course, dosages will vary based on my goals, based on, like I said, a good example is the vitamin D with seasons. So that, and especially even tending more toward an off season or pre-contest. Off season, I'll probably take it easy on the supplements. Of course, anyone who's involved in any kind of physique competition will know you will do what it takes to place as well as you will in your show and try to beat your previous best. And of course, what that means, and I'm not saying taking anything that's out of bound within your federation, but you're going to make sure all your supplements work and your supplementation regimen is on point for when you do start a prep to fill in all those gaps that you're going to be missing naturally from a caloric deficit and not having as much energy. So that covers my personal sup use, and next we'll get into my style of training and the training that I've done, and I've done pretty much my whole career, and especially going more into the science perspective of how to grow muscle and influence body composition versus training an athlete. What are some of the main differences, and is there carryover from one side to another? And I will say there is. But I won't get too much into the athletic training portion because I don't want to incriminate myself. I don't specialize in training athletes. I know there might be someone that'll call me out saying something that's be like, oh, he said something totally ludicrous. That's not true. So I'm not going to say that, but I do have my feet wet in training athletes and knowing generally what they need to do. And as athletes, anything you do in the weight room and any kind of conditioning you do should translate somehow to the field. And what that means is training motions that'll translate to motions that you perform in your sport. So we could talk about baseball for an example. A lot of hip rotation stuff, core stability, shoulder health, huge. Forearm training, another big one. And that'll definitely vary from sport to sport. So when I say athletic training, I don't necessarily even mean one specific sport because it's going to vary very much from sport to sport. Whether it be something like basketball, which has a very lower body centered training approach, a lot of explosive movements to improve jumping and lateral movement, as opposed to something that might be like soccer, where the majority of training, although there is training with weights, which there should be in the programming, might focus on more aerobic capacity, the endurance portion of sport. So in terms of hypertrophy, what we're trying to do is isolate muscles. And when you are on the field performing your sport, you won't have time to consciously contract muscle. So what athletic training will focus on is, like I said, training movements, but at the same time, really intelligent strength coaches that work with programming for athletes will be able to work on the neurological side of things to say, when an athlete will perform this movement, how do we get the right muscles activated? How do we get these right muscles strong so that when the time comes and it's a boom, quick, unconscious decision to make this movement, you have the right muscles firing, you have the strongest muscles firing to perform that action to the best of their ability. So that's what it comes down to, and a lot of it will come from that explosive movement and exercises that will train explosive movement. And a lot of that will also vary with rep ranges and programming and percentages. Not much, of course, rep ranges, exercise selection will come into a huge part of hypertrophy training, but in my programming with clients for body composition, I've never been much of a percentage guy. I've always been leaning in whatever rep range it may be, but executing that set to muscle failure. Not every set, of of course, there's a time and place for everything, and same thing when it comes to training for athletics. And another thing that even strength coaches, and I'll bring up again the intelligent ones, will take into consideration when training athletes, and I really think that strength coaches for athletic teams should really take a deeper look into these factors, the recovery and diet end of things. How can you properly fuel your athletes to perform the best? Because, of course, when a season's upcoming, training's not going to be the same as it would be, say, 4 to 6 months out from a season. So I believe in turn, diet, whenever it comes to any kind of training, diet must match the training. So your smart strength coaches will analyze that. They will change the diet. They'll look at lifestyle factors and make sure that their athletes are in the best position to do what they need to do. And by do what they need to do, it's the best performance on the field. So that's going to differ from training for hypertrophy, because believe it or not, your practices, your game are simply your workouts. That's where you need to perform well in order to get the best results that you want for yourself. So the recovery and diet aspect is something that's usually overlooked, but it shouldn't be for the athletic training portion. And lastly, I'm going to finish with a great one here from Justin Steinberger. Leg training. I love it. Anyone who knows me, I'm known for my legs. I love training legs, and it's always been like that. So we'll get into the specifics of leg training exercise selection based on body type as well as goals. So with leg training, it's no different from any other muscle group or any other credential of selecting an exercise. You're going to want to look at the 3 factors of exercise and the 3 reasons for selecting an exercise. You want to look at your stability, you want to look at accuracy, you want to look at profile. So, depending on the person, certain exercises might provide better opportunities in each of these 3 categories. And a lot of that will come down to the person's body shape, body type, as well as mobility. Mobility is a huge factor. So naturally for me, I have relatively long femurs. So right off the bat, squats, traditional back squats, might not be the answer for me building quads. I have gotten results from squats. I still do squats, but not traditional barbell back squats from the floor without any kind of accommodating resistance whatsoever. And that'll be brought up more in detail as we're still going on about legs. But it might not be the best exercise for me. On the other hand, what fits me won't fit someone else. They might have shorter femurs, for example, and a back squat might fit them perfectly. Why? Their low back and their back in general may stay perfectly upright, and they won't feel any pain, they won't feel any fatigue, and they'll just be able to produce great quad contractions out of the bottom and allow their quads to fail first, and squats might be a great exercise for them. Another thing, like I mentioned, is mobility. So mobility in any joints that are involved in most leg movements. So depending on the movement, compound, isolation, the 3 joints that are really going to come into play, you have your ankle joint, your knee joint, and your hip joints. And you're able to be impaired or move freely on either end of the spectrum in any of these joints. So we'll start at the ankles. A lot of people, including me, depending on my squat and how I'm feeling that day, might have less or more ankle mobility. So if I know my ankle mobility is on point, I will likely opt to go against. You've seen me squat with the heel wedge. I might be able to either use a lower angle on the heel wedge or switch to something like just squatting on plates, depending on how my ankles feel that day. Granted, my goal in the squat is the same. So when I'm squatting for quads. Nothing against squatting for glutes. It's all centered on your goals. So by squatting for quads, I'm able to get my knee to travel over my knee, fully stretch the quad, get to the bottom, fully contract. So if my ankle mobility is high in that day, I won't need a high steep heel wedge to be able to allow my knee to go fully past my toe. And on the other hand, that works the same way as well. My ankle mobility is poor, possibly. Then I might have to increase that angle to allow my knee to still hit that same position over my toe. So that's a consideration when it comes to ankles. Knees as well. A lot of people I've seen that have knees to cave in on a squat, which again it's a chain reaction of things happening that will come into play with the hips and the glutes and the back end of legs, your glutes, hamstrings, and your strength in that category. But when it comes to your knees, being able to control that can also be something that could affect your stance when you're squatting. And when I mean squat, I'm just using squatting as an example. It could be squatting, could be hack squatting, could be leg pressing, any of these. Although the heel wedge thing won't particularly apply on hacks or leg press. But when it comes to knees, it's going to be able to select your width of your feet, whether it be shoulder width, closer. Some people could go closer, and some people could go wider. Assuming that everything goes smoothly up and down, knees don't cave, hips are able to clear through. And then, so up to the hips, that's another big thing. And the hips are a big one where it comes to selecting leg exercises that are free weight or less stable, like a squat, a front squat, anything like that, or a leg press or a hack squat. If you're able to be braced at the pelvis and your hips are struggling in terms of mobility and stability, some people overlook, a lot of people will get infatuated with mobility and say my body has to move in all these planes, but stability is key, especially with lower body training, to be able to provide that internal environment where you're able to work the desired muscle. So if your hips are not mobile, if your hips are not stable, leg press, hack squat will probably be a better option. So that's when it comes into the purely the physical aspects of leg training. And leg exercise selection, like anything, will come down to goals. What do you want to do? Where do you want to add size particularly? Do you want it to be quads? It could be glute centered. It could be hamstring centered. And anything, once you realize that goal, it will fall into place from there. All the other factors of training, your volume, your frequency, and your exercise selection will fall into place once you realize that goal. So of course I'll follow just the general priority principle. If your main goal is quads, hit quads first. If your main goal is hamstrings, train hamstrings first. I'm not saying do that all the time, but the majority of your leg days should follow that pattern. And also, so again with everything, select the exercises that work for you. Once you have those exercises and you have a pool, you should have a pool of exercises that work not only the shorten and lengthen ranges, but also consciously thinking about working areas of the muscle and how it lines up in terms of accuracy and how you can manipulate the tensions as well as the strength curve to get the most benefit out of an exercise. And another thing that I like to use with leg training is accommodating resistance. Accommodating resistance is great for many reasons, and one of them I also like to think is beneficial for me training alone with accommodating resistance is if you don't have a competent spotter to spot you on certain exercises, you could easily bury yourself. And what I mean by that is, say you're doing a hack squat, a heavy hack squat, no bands, no chains, anything, but just plates. And I get to the bottom of a hack squat and I'm buried. Rep 6, buried. But if I had a spotter there, I might have been able, with a little tap, as most people who've trained for long enough realize that when they're training with someone, it doesn't take much help to get them out of a certain sticking point of the strength curve. And what accommodating resistance does, especially in terms of training alone, not saying you only should use it when training alone, but you're able to manipulate that strength curve. Say I'm in that same hack squat and I decide to use a reverse band and the reverse band will be able to give me a little bit of help out of the bottom, so the bottom won't be all tension, and it'll take a little bit of that plate resistance off, so then I'm able to get through that sticking point and finish my rep. And in turn, this could add up over time. You might get an extra rep or two per set, and then the sets will add up through workouts, and you'll get that. And back to the training thing, individually versus training with a partner. And I'll say this, if you can train legs with a partner, if you could train legs with someone who's pretty much on your level in terms of strength and even leg development, if you can't even work out with someone that's far greater than you, because they probably, granted, will have a few tricks up their sleeve on how to develop quads and how to put you through a rigorous quad or hamstring or full leg day, whatever it may be. But it will allow you to get those extra few reps. And especially with legs, no one wants those reps. Those reps are difficult, and it might take 1 or 2 reps at the end of a set. That might just set the tone for the entire workout. And that's what you want to do. You want to be able to hit those reps. And again, those reps add up. And that, especially when you get to higher levels of maybe more of the competitive bodybuilding, this might be more so telling myself versus anyone else, that's what's going to separate you from the competition. It might be someone outside of yourself that will allow you, granted mentally, you actually stay in the set and your execution and everything is spot on, allows you to extend that set and get beyond that point. So that's what it comes down to for leg training. Realizing your goals, properly picking exercises that suit you and suit your body, and realize what factors influence your body and how you are able to select the exercises based on those limiting factors. So that is it for the Q&A session. Hopefully I covered a lot of the topics in detail, and I was able to answer everyone's questions. And of course, I really like doing a Q&A session. Really allows me to cover a wide range of topics that might be pressing matters for people that they would just like something explained in more detail. And they're fun for me too, because I'll have to do the research behind this to be able to give you guys an intelligent answer that maybe in turn I actually had to learn something myself. So thank you guys for watching the Q&A, and do not hesitate. Any questions, I'll answer them privately. I could even cover them in a Q&A session depending on if I feel people might have the same question. They probably will. So there will be future Q&A sessions. You can definitely send me these questions on Instagram. You can DM me there. My username is SmithAustin789. Also, Facebook works. Just my name, Austin Smithonic. And any other questions, be sure you could leave comments below. I could address them there. And thank you guys for watching this first Q&A. I hope you enjoyed it.